By the end of this tutorial, you'll have a fully functional OBS setup complete with basic screen recording and Facecam scenes, independent audio tracks to give you more power when editing, and proper encoding settings to allow your recordings to run smoothly and look great. This guide is very well suited for gamers and is meant to be beginner friendly, with the only expectation being that you have already installed OBS Studio from obsproject.com. So if you're on a Windows computer, before you open OBS, right click and go to Properties, then Compatibility, and then enable Run this program as an administrator. This isn't always necessary, but it can help prevent some weird problems OBS can have with capturing certain games. But now that you've done this, you can open OBS. Upon opening up the software, you'll be greeted with a setup wizard. You can safely close this and ignore it, as we're going to be setting up all of our settings completely by ourselves in just a moment. Now, by default, OBS will add your microphone and your system audio as a global source. That means that these audio sources can be included in all of your scenes. Personally, I prefer to disable these completely, as I like to have full control over my OBS configuration. So to remove these, go to Settings, Audio, and then select the devices in question, and then just set them to disabled. I completely understand if you like the idea of having global sources, but at a bare minimum, I recommend that you remove your system audio as one, as I'll be showing you a better method to capture your game audio in just a moment. But before we get to that, let's go to the Video tab. Here you can change the resolution of your recordings. I have a 1440p monitor, and I choose to play games at the same resolution, so I'm going to make sure that 2560 by 1440 is selected so I can capture my games at their full resolution. I'm also going to be setting my output resolution to the same to ensure that I'm not forcing my computer to do any unnecessary scaling. Set your frame rate to 60 as it's going to look the most smooth for your viewers, and then click apply. Then you can click OK. We are now ready to begin building your scenes. Scenes are just essentially collections of sources, which are elements that you're capturing or displaying within OBS. Scenes are often set up to have different purposes and will often have completely different collections of sources inside of them. For example, a gaming speedrunner may choose to have a scene that has their game, a timer, microphone, music, and maybe even their webcam too, while a simple talking to the camera recording, like the one you're watching right now, may only require a webcam source and a microphone. So let's start with your gaming scene. Most people will want to capture their gameplay, camera, and game sound, as well as their microphone. So to record your games, we're going to right click on the empty space under the sources section, or we're going to click the plus icon. And we can now select Game Capture. Note that some games may work better with other methods like window capture, so I recommend you play around depending on what game you're playing. But as a first guess, always try Game Capture first, as it uses the most efficient methods to capture your games. Regardless of which method you choose, the following steps are going to be more or less the same, so I recommend to just tread a little bit carefully if you choose not to use Game Capture right now this second. For the first setting, I prefer to use Capture Specific Window for the capture mode, but I also enjoy using the hotkey mode as well. This setting is purely personal preference, and I've personally used both extensively, so honestly just pick whatever you feel the most comfortable with, but in this case I'm just going to pick specific window because it's the most simple to set up. Now in the same screen, you can also enable audio capturing by enabling Capture Audio Beta. This will capture just your game's sound and absolutely nothing else. All of your extra unnecessary unwanted sounds like Discord notifications will not be included in this recording track at all. If you like to use a webcam in your recordings, you can also add a video capture device in the same way that you added your game capture. You may want to rename this to something friendly, such as camera or webcam, just so you can remember what the source is in the future. You can select whichever camera you'd like to use, or even add multiple sources if you want to have multiple camera angles, but just make sure that you've set the resolution to be something appropriate. The webcam I'm using in this example can shoot in 4K, and I want to be able to use it in my full screen scene just a little bit later, so I'll be picking that resolution. Feel free to tinker with the other settings if you're aware about color spaces and video formats, but if you're a complete beginner, you don't need to worry about them at all, as the defaults are very serviceable. At this point, your camera may be too big or too small for your scene, so just click on it in the scene preview and then use the red bounding boxes to resize it and move it anywhere that you'd like. If you'd like to crop your camera, a very easy way to do this is to hold down the Alt key on your keyboard and then drag the bounding boxes to resize and move your camera until you're happy with how it looks. If you're ever unhappy with changes that you've made, you can always do Ctrl R to reset all of your transformations, or Ctrl F if you just want to snap your camera to fit the size of your scene. If you'd like a more precise approach for cropping your camera, feel free to right click on the source and go to filters. You can then add a crop/pad filter, which can allow you to add exact pixel values for how much you'd like to crop your source. Keep in mind that any changes that you do on a source filter will affect that source in all of your scenes. Now that we have two sources, I'd like you to just pay attention to the fact that OBS has a very simple layering system. It's very similar to any editing software that you will use, but it's good to be aware of this in the future if you want to develop some more advanced scenes. At this point, we've almost finished your gaming scene, but you'll probably want to record your microphone as well. So, using the same method that we use to add your game capture and your camera, add what's called an audio input capture source, and then select your microphone. When speaking, you should probably aim to have your voice hit just around the yellow range, but if you tend to be a very loud person, you may want to adjust your microphone just to be a little bit lower. I personally suggest avoiding using filters inside of OBS, as with the nature of a recording, you can always adjust it later in post, but if you overdo your filters now while you're recording live, so to speak, it's going to be very hard to repair if you mess up a setting. On the note of audio, you'd probably also like to have your gameplay audio completely separate from your microphone so you can actually do all these adjustments that I've just mentioned. So to accomplish this, we can right click on the volume mixer and then click Advanced Audio Properties and assign your sources to their own tracks. To do this, I recommend deselecting all of the boxes and then checking the specific track that you'd like to assign to your source, which in my case will be my gameplay on track 1 and my microphone on track 2. If you'd like to add another audio source for something like Discord in the same way that we did our game capture, feel free to add what's called an audio application capture and repeat the previous steps. Now, before you jump the gun and start recording, there is actually one final setting you'll need to do in order for these tracks to be properly recorded, which I'll cover in the settings section of this video. Now, sometimes you aren't always trying to record your screen. At times, you may want to speak directly to the camera like I am now, or you want to do some funny faces for a YouTube thumbnail. But since we've already added a bunch of sources to your gaming scene, making a Facecam scene will actually be extremely easy. When you try and add your camera and microphone again into this scene, OBS will let you select the sources that you had already added earlier. That means that I can just select my camera source the same way that I did originally, and then just do Ctrl F to make my camera fit the scene. Everything that I did to my camera source, such as my settings and my filters, will be applied to my Facecam scene, so at this point I'm already done and ready to go. If you used the filter method earlier to crop your camera, you may notice that your full screen camera scene is also cropped. There are a couple ways to avoid this. My personal preference is to use a source mirroring plugin to get around this, but a very simple workaround to do instead. This may sound a little convoluted, so bear with me, but I like to make a separate independent scene called cropped camera. I can then add my camera source to that, like normal, and then in my gaming scene, I can add that embedded camera scene as a source. And now that I've done that, I can apply the filter to my new cropped camera scene. The key takeaway here is that you can use scenes as sources, meaning that you can effectively duplicate your camera and apply a variety of different filters like we're doing with our cropped camera now. If you start doing more complex setups in OBS, you'll probably find embedded scenes like this as a very useful tool to keep yourself organized. Now we are ready to get into the more technical settings. There is no strict order to what settings that we'll be doing at any given moment, but I have ordered the sections to match my personal view on how complex I think they are. Since we've already looked at the video and the audio tabs earlier, I'll be skipping these sections completely. So to finish setting up your recording settings, go to the Output tab. Make sure your output mode is set to advanced so you can get a full range of settings, and then under the recording tab, you'll have a wide selection of options. One of the first things I like to do is to set my recording format to MKV. I highly recommend using this format, as if your OBS or your entire computer ever crashes during a recording, you'll be able to recover the file with little to no effort. Another good option is Hybrid MP4, which aims to give you the same benefits as an MKV while still being supported by programs like Premiere Pro without any extra effort. Either of these options are completely fine, but I just prefer to use MKV as I've been using it for years and it's always been completely reliable for me. I'm simply just used to it. Moving on, if you have an NVIDIA graphics card, choose NVENC as your encoder, as it utilizes a dedicated video encoder chip inside of your graphics card, and it should allow you to record with little to no performance impact, which is completely ideal for a gamer. I personally use H.264 because I find it easy to decode and I think it plays nice with my editing software, but I highly suggest that you gain your own experiences with these settings as well. If you have an AMD graphics card, there is a similar option called AMF, and if you have neither of these, you can try using Intel QuickSync if your processor supports it, or finally X.264 for CPU encoding. This is not ideal and will likely lead to noticeable performance impact, so you may have to play around with the settings a lot more carefully. You should now select all of your desired audio tracks. As I assign my microphone and game audio to tracks 1 and 2 respectively, I will select them here. The next section is your encoder settings, which are some of the most important settings when it comes to the visual aspect of your recordings. By default, OBS is set to use constant bitrate, which is known as CBR. This is not very effective in most settings for a few reasons. Typically, lower bitrates will look fine in slow-paced recordings or games with lower details, but in high-motion games, your quality will suffer very quickly. So, thinking about it logically, if you want to have more quality, it makes sense to think that you should just increase your bitrate, and this is completely true. The main drawback of this is that if you ever switch games or just walk away from your computer for a little bit while recording, you'll be chewing up your storage space unnecessarily. I'm not proud to admit that I may have a couple 50GB screen recordings of the Minecraft menu screen on my computer. Just for recording, please don't use CBR, okay? So as a much better alternative, you should be using CQP or CRF if you're using your CPU's encoder. CQP, as a gross oversimplification, dynamically adjusts your bitrate to match a certain quality number. So when we're recording something like a menu screen, your bitrate can actually drop to something very low, such as 2000 kilobits. But then the moment you start moving around and playing something intense, it can spike as high as it possibly needs to reach that target quality number. It's genuinely the best of both worlds. An interesting thing with CQP though is that the lower the number, the better the quality. I highly recommend using a value between 18 and 22, as anything higher than this will lead to a noticeable drop in quality, and anything lower will just lead to diminishing returns. Keep in mind that YouTube does compress your video anyway, so don't go too overboard with quality settings. The rest of the defaults are perfectly serviceable and acceptable, so just to avoid overwhelming you and bloating this video even further, you can just leave these settings be. If you are getting encoder overloaded errors in OBS, you may want to adjust your preset from something like P5 to something much easier on your computer, but if you'd like to squeeze out just a little bit of extra quality and your computer can handle it, you can always turn that quality up. Finally, you can go to the audio tab. Here you can name your tracks and provide some nice labeling so players such as VLC can display what your tracks are. I also highly recommend setting the bitrate of your audio tracks to the maximum of 320 just for the sake of quality. And now you can click apply and then OK to save these settings. Before you hit record though, I highly recommend going to Docs and enabling the Stats doc. You can place this anywhere on your screen and it will allow you to see important OBS information such as storage space and whether your recording is running smoothly. Ideally, you'll want to be starting your recordings with a nice amount of storage space remaining, and you want to have 0 dropped frames. This is a bit of a bonus tip, but if you've just finished recording and you want to start editing and you use a program such as Premiere Pro, you may notice an error when it comes to loading in your MKV files. You don't need to worry if you see this. All you need to do is to go back into OBS, click on File, Remux Recordings, and then process your files through there. Remuxing your files is a very fast process and will not affect the quality of your files at all. It's just changing the container format of the files themselves without actually re-encoding anything. If you really can't stand this process, understandably, you may choose to record in something like Hybrid MP4 instead, but just give it a couple experimentations before you do a major recording that you don't want to lose. Anyways, at this point, you should be ready to make some gaming videos or any videos that involves recording yourself or your computer's screen. I hope you found this video helpful in any way, shape or form. I'm Ben from NewTubers, and my final tip for you is to watch this video right here, which the algorithm has graciously picked out for you to watch. Thank you for watching.